I want to learn more about the whole behind the scenes of the wine industry and the price changes and the data that you have access to. How do you see the pricing evolution of the wine market right now? How do you see why are the prices so unpredictable? How do the import taxes, the branding, and the hype inflate the prices?
Well, that's a huge question. I mean, look, without enormous research prior to having that, it's difficult to give clear answers. I think what can we see is we can look, for instance, the data I was giving at the Pinot Noir conference, we can look at producers or regions or countries, and we can sort of see how they fit into things. I mean, for instance, with Pinot Noir, it's very obvious that at the real top level of pricing, it is it's markets in China and Hong Kong that are driving pricing at the moment, and that is, you know, at the moment, Burgundy dominates that sort of over $500 a bottle price bracket. I mean, we all wish we could drink those kinds of wines, but and actually, what I was saying to New Zealand's Pinot Noir producers was that they don't have any wines that fit in that at all, and yet you've got some fantastic wines. I mean, earlier I mentioned, remembering very vividly, Martin Bravignard's Pinot Noir, but I mean, wines like Felton Road and things like that, absolutely stunning wines. Atarangi is another one, absolutely delicious, and yet they don't come into those top flight prices. And at the same conference, there was Feng Walker, a Chinese master of wine, was actually saying, well, really, these wines are too cheap for this market, because there are people looking for the prestige of these expensive wines, and they don't fit into that. And yet, I think they certainly deliver on quality and deliciousness. So, I mean, those are the kinds of insights that we can give. We can look at, one of the things we were doing, we were looking at the situation in terms of the number of searches that we get from particular markets, and from that you can see what proportion of searches in that market are for a particular variety, and then you can look at what the listings from merchants are in that same market, and you can contrast whether the listing percentages are in line with the demand. So what we were seeing was that actually for most markets, listings for Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand are increasing, whereas actually it's demand for Pinot Noir from New Zealand that's increasing. So there seems to be an imbalance there that I think deserves a lot more consideration. So, you're looking as to what markets you can be in, looking as to whether your pricing's correct. All these things are things that, you know, we do sell data to the trade that we can help with. I mean, for instance, if you're a producer in Bordeaux, I mean, yes, a lot of them very carefully control which negociant they sell to, because they know which negociants have strength in which areas. But really, you have no control over where your wine's going to go once you've sold it to a negociant. So, you know, those kinds of insights can be useful to people. I mean, it might even be a producer. Somebody was talking to me the other day about they use Wine Searcher to see those markets where there are large format bottles, and if they feel that more need to be introduced into those markets, they'll do that.
Wow, that's interesting. Can you tell us some details that you answered to this producer? I'm curious about that.
No, I mean, he was doing that just using the app normally. So he was completely in control of that. I didn't even do any work for that one. But there are so many different uses for these things, I think. I mean, one of the most bizarre bits of data I've ever come across was, as part of my job, I oversee our content creation. So I report on the number of people watching, number of people using our news reports, number of users reading that.
Okay.
And we used to see very regularly spikes in readership of a particular article about a New Zealand wine producer, Kim Crawford.
Okay.
And we'd written this article a while back, and we couldn't work out why we were suddenly getting these large jumps in readership. And I actually managed to tie it back to when the particular company, Kim Crawford, were advertising their Sauvignon Blanc in the United States. So when there were bursts of advertising, we'd get bursts of people reading this story. I suddenly realized that the reason they were doing this was that it was the article that on Google at that stage came up first. If you typed into a Google search, is Kim Crawford a man or a woman? Because Kim's very definitely a man, but I think in America, the name is often a woman's name. So, and it was quite bizarre actually that we managed to get to that stage of realizing it. But and to see that. Just to see that from that, the effectiveness of their advertising was fascinating as well.
It's so interesting.
Spikes in interest. I wrote a story a couple of years ago, and I couldn't honestly remember who they are, but there was a K-pop band that had decided that they were seen drinking Chateau Margaux, and suddenly we'd seen it.
I think I read this article. Yeah.
Some of the insights you get there, you can have a golfer has decided to drink Haut-Brion, and suddenly it goes bananas in terms of people searching for it. Well, it's not necessarily people buying it, of course. I mean, that they just want to know, what is this Haut-Brion thing? How expensive is it? And well, I'm sure some of them drink it, but probably not that many.
Of course, it's so interesting that Wine Searcher became this platform that follows all the waves of the wine industry, and you can see all these things and maybe anomalies.
Oh yeah, and we have a screen in the middle of the office where you can sort of see what the trends are, and
in real time.
I'd have to check with one of our tech guys to be sure as to how what sort of delay or that sort of thing is. But I mean, to be honest, there is just so much data. We probably don't see most of the trends that go on.
Of course.
Thanks for watching this video. You can watch the full podcast episode by clicking here, or watch another interesting video by clicking here. Let's continue the discussion in the comment section, and see you in the next one.